Yeah, this is great. All right. Hi, my name is Trisha. My pronouns are she, her, and I live here in Phoenix. I'm the Arizona Battlegrounds Director, and I'm here a little bit to welcome you and give you a little housekeeping. We'll cover the agenda, and then we'll be going into questions with Raquel Terán. Very excited to get to know everybody better. Want to let you know that this call is being recorded, and all materials on the call will be shared out after following tonight's call. We also want to note that we'll disable the chat during the interview portion of the call. The chat can be a little distracting for panelists and attendees alike, and so we want to ensure that the focus is on our guest. Closed captioning is available. You can turn it on by clicking the CC on the bottom of your Zoom screen, and that will help quite a bit. I know I always use it. And let us know in the chat if you need any help with that. And I think one more housekeeping. And then regarding the interview, in addition to turning off the chat, I just want to give you a heads up. We set our questions ahead of time for the interview based on what all of you submitted when you registered for the call, as well as issues that are relevant for the district. We may not be able to cover everything tonight, so please check out Raquel's website for more information. All right, now for the call agenda. I'm going to update you on some Arizona Battleground Arizona work and upcoming Indivisible actions. And then I'll invite Signa Oliver, the leader of Indivisible South Mountain, to share a few words that are important to her about this work and the Arizona 3 primary and why this race is an important one to get involved in. After Signa, we'll bring out Mari Ambera, Indivisible's managing director, to say a few words before the main event. And then we'll welcome Raquel Terán into the space and have a conversation with Mari about her historic run for Arizona's 3rd Congressional District. And finally, we'll bring on AJ Hendricks from Indivisible's political team to share a few important notes before we wrap things up. All righty, next slide. So I have some updates. Next week, actually, I think it's in 2 weeks, May 29th, we're going to do our Arizona Battleground quarterly campaign call. Join us for updates and previews about the Arizona Battleground campaign work. We'll be hearing, celebrating some incredible work the Indivisibles have done around the Arizona for Abortion Access Amendment, the launch of Neighbor to Neighbor, and a look ahead of what's coming over the summer. This is the call to be on, to be looped into our 2024 work in Arizona. The link is going in the chat, so you can sign up for that. And then at our national updates, we have some Majority Over MAGA weekend kickoff call. So it's June 13th. You'll join us for June 13th for a Majority Over MAGA Weekend of Action kickoff call. The Weekend of Action marks the 2-year anniversary of the Supreme Court Dobbs decision. During this national movement call, we'll examine the critical impact reproductive rights have on the election and discuss the tactics that you can take to combat MAGA extremism, engage voters, and amplify our voices on the upcoming Majority Over MAGA Weekend of Action. We're dropping a link in the chat for it right now. All right, so that's what's coming up with Indivisible. And now I'd like to introduce you to one of my favorite people in Arizona, someone I love to protest with, and someone I like to just have lunch with some days. So introducing Signa Oliver from Indivisible South Mountain. Signa, how you doing?
Hi, Trisha. One of my favorite people too. Hey, everybody, I'm Signa Oliver, and I co-chair Indivisible South Mountain with Julie Golding, who's also on the call. Indivisible South Mountain has some shared values that we're just gonna share with you. We have to make our voices heard down here in CD3, and we do that through civic engagement and leadership. From voting and other practices that solve problems and make democracy work for everybody in this CD. We develop the next leaders and we support systems that we believe in, and we will work toward fair, just, and equitable treatment for all people in the South Mountain community. Public education for all in the South Mountain community is important to us. We want to build a highly educated and skilled workforce. I actually sit on the Phoenix Union School Board here in Phoenix, and that's a lot of work. Anyway, a little about my group, Indivisible South Mountain. We envision a world where every individual has autonomy over their own body. We're working every day to restore abortion rights in Arizona. Right now, that mostly looks like collecting petition signatures to put an abortion access amendment on the November ballot. And we here at South Mountain, we have actually passed out, because we're kind of distribution center, we've passed out 99 petitions so far, and we're one of the smaller groups. Um, Indivisible South Mountain recently endorsed Raquel Terán for Congress. Some background: there hasn't been an open primary for this seat in 2 decades, when Ruben Gallego first won his primary. We've never needed to endorse before. But when Ruben announced his run for Senate, we recognized that we had a very rare opportunity to have a say in the kind of Democrat we wanted to represent us from this area in Congress. And there's really only one question that we will ask ourselves when we're considering an endorsement. That was, which candidate did we think is the best person to hold the political office being sought? Or, as AOC recently said, what conditions do we want to organize under? And when we evaluated the candidates and asked our membership who they thought wanted to organize under, Raquel Terán was the resounding choice. We took her through some stuff. Didn't we? We had meetings after meetings, one-on-one meetings with her, and we badgered her, and we took her through some things, and she held her own like a trooper, because that's who she is. And Indivisible South Mountain is all in for Raquel in this primary, and we are so excited to be a part of her winning coalition. I want to thank Indivisible for inviting us on and for hosting what I'm sure will be a great conversation with Raquel. And back to you, Trisha.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Signa. 99 petitions. Yes. Fabulous. All right. Thank you so much, Signa. We're going to disable the chat function now for the interview. We want to make sure everybody can focus on the interview with limiting distractions, and so we'll turn the chat off for a little while. Before we bring out Raquel, I'd like to invite Indivisible's Managing Director, Mary Urbina, to say a few words.
Thank you,
Mari?
Trisha, and thank you, Signa. It's always such a pleasure to be with you in town. I'm so excited that we get to have a conversation with Raquel tonight. Who's fired up? Are we fired up? All right, great. That's what I love to see and hear. Listen, y'all, I've been engaging in Battleground Arizona for the last year, and holy smokes, can I tell you, it is the strongest network of grassroots committed leaders in the country. And one thing I'm really clear about is that we absolutely have to win in Arizona up and down the ballot this year. The country needs Arizona, and Arizona needs the country. And so that's why we're here. We're teaming up as grassroots leaders, as partners in this work, because we have to make sure MAGA Republicans are booted top to bottom. I'm just so grateful to all of our Arizona Indivisible leaders for your impeccable organizing, your incredible work year round. I heard that we've already gotten to 18,000 verified signatures. I mean, come on, y'all, that's huge. Those are signatures that have been collected by volunteers, by people who go to stand outside of farmers markets, tattoo parlors, grocery stores, and now are using Neighbor to Neighbor to go out and make sure that every Arizona knows that they have a chance to secure and protect abortion rights at the ballot this year, and hopefully also support all of our candidates who are here with us. So let's get to it. One thing I want to say before we talk to Raquel is, one, I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I know I got a bunch of messages about the New York Times poll this week that came out on all the battleground states. So let's just start by saying, one, we are grassroots people. We organize for the futures we want. We organize, we create the conditions we want to make sure that we win. And so while a lot of folks are out there distracted around the polling, we know that while it is a legitimate and real organizing challenge, we know that we're not going to back away from a hard fight. And I know Raquel isn't going to back away from a hard fight. We're going to codify abortion rights at the national state level. We're going to make sure we pass structural democracy reforms and voting right protections. And we absolutely need to win a Democratic trifecta in November so that we have effective governing. There's no way we do that without Arizona, which is why we're so excited to be talking about Arizona 3, one of the key turnout districts to making sure that this state protects our democracy. So let's get to know Raquel a little bit. Some of you may know her already, and I'm not going to give y'all my entire spiel the first time I met Raquel and I heard her story in a living room. But I'm not surprised that Raquel got her start with a clipboard and a pen, registering folks to vote at a Today We March and Tomorrow We Vote immigrant rights rally. She spent more than a decade organizing Arizona away from anti-immigrant extremists like Russell Pierce and Joe Arpaio. And just this weekend, I heard she was still out in the streets, rallying outside the Capitol, organizing against current day Republican efforts to continue to instill fear and division among Arizonans. She's leading the charge and mentoring the next generation of leaders. Raquel has grown through all the different iterations of an organizer. And in that time, she's built a deep community. She has such a broad coalition, and we are so lucky to be in conversation with her tonight as she looks to broaden it. It is because of that deep organizing network that Raquel decided in 2018 to change her megaphone out for a microphone, making the bold leap to run for office. Her first elected position was representing Legislative District 30 in the Arizona legislature. And as a lawmaker, she was effective. She was able to expand access to healthcare, raise Arizona's minimum wage, and provide paid sick leave to Arizona's working families, and fight back attacks on reproductive rights. She didn't stop there either. She knows that service is about doing the will of the people. And in 2021, while she was serving as the Arizona Democratic Party chair, Raquel led the charge to hold Kristen Sinema accountable for her broken campaign promises and her disappointing inaction on progressive priorities in the Senate. Hopefully you're over there booing or cheering. Since then, she went on to organize a broad tent coalition of Arizonans to reject MAGA extremists like Carrie Lake, Blake Masters, and Mark Fincham, and elect powerhouse Democrats to key statewide offices that had been run by Republicans for decades. When it comes to righteous fights for justice and equality, Raquel is someone who not just talks the talk, but walks the walk. So it's my esteemed pleasure to welcome her tonight within our Indivisible community and talk to her about being the people's candidate for Arizona's 3rd Congressional District. Raquel, bienvenida, hermana.
Ay, qué padre. I'm so happy to be here with you all. Thank you. You know, it's a long day of call time, and if you all have done call time, it's a process. I'm just gonna leave it at that. So ending the day with Signa, Trisha, Mary, Maria, mi Maria, mi Maria, mi Mari. And the whole Indivisible team is just amazing. So thank you for this conversation. I'm looking forward to it.
Great. So I have to do the super nerdy legal disclaimer very quickly.
Okay.
So this is my legal disclaimer. We are working on the independent expenditure side of campaigns. So we work on elections on the independent of and without the influence from any candidate, campaign, or political priority. We're here to learn more about Raquel's candidacy for Congress and ask that you not share any non-public plans or strategies with us.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, Mohed. So let's start with you just sharing some of your background. Like some of our folks obviously really have been following your career for some time and know you and have been following you, but would love to hear like what led you to get involved in advocacy? What are some of your proudest accomplishments? And why did you decide to run for Congress?
All right, where do I get started? Okay, so I got started in Arizona politics back in the early 2000s, but my upbringing starts at the border. I grew up on the street that divides the United States and Mexico. I was born in Douglas, raised on the Mexican side of the border, crossed back and forth all my life. And I always like to share that about myself. People will ask me, are you a country girl? Are you a city girl? And I always like, I'm a border girl. And it's a different culture. And I grew up in a very loving family. My parents were involved in our communities through the Catholic Church. I grew up Catholic, and I always like to talk about my parents and my grandparents because I learned community organizing by watching them. I didn't even know community organizing was a thing, but they were always organizing and supporting our community. And so I guess I was a community organizer since I was young. And so I would always, complain to my dad, why were we not real Mexicans if we lived in Mexico? And but I was born in the United States, and he would always instill in my sister, my siblings and me that we were born in the United States, and that meant that it was more opportunities, it was more fairness, there was more opportunities for better education. So his vision of this country was the American dream. And so when there was a rise of the anti-immigrant sentiment in Arizona, we've always had it. I always share that we've always had that anti-immigrant sentiment. But after 9/11, what we saw rise with the MAGA across the country in 2006, we were seeing it here on the ground in Arizona with bad propositions, with elected officials who were politicizing with our communities. And particularly around the border, we had the vigilante movement. And well, if we want to call it a movement, these wild folks who were at the border questioning if people should be here or not. And I remember that I was visiting my hometowns and I was very agitated with what was happening with these folks who were carrying guns around the Douglas area and basically questioning if we should be there or not. And so I wanted to look for an avenue of engagement, and I was not connected to many of the organizations that we have now. I actually started through the Catholic Church. There was a campaign for immigration reform where it was called the White Ribbon Campaign. So it was praying for immigration reform. And so it was not sufficient. I knew it in my heart. And I was an organizer. I was turning out volunteers to put white ribbons on flyers. And so I had potential. If I would have been an organizer, I would have been like, hey, we need to recruit that person. But anyway, I knew that was not the only thing. I'm still a person of faith and believe in prayer. And it wasn't until a huge march that happened that happened in downtown Phoenix. And Mari, you already talked about it, where the theme of that march was "Today we march, tomorrow we vote." And I attended that march. All of these marches were happening all across the country. It was led by labor and immigrant rights groups. And we're marching against the Sensenbrenner bill that would criminalize everybody who was here in the country undocumented. And so I fortunately ended at the volunteer table with Mi Familia Vota. And there they did hand me a clipboard with voter registration forms. And I took that theme to heart. Fortunately, they did follow up with me. They called me to volunteer. They asked me to knock on doors to help people register to vote, to help people become U.S. citizens. And that's where I learned, like, okay, if I wanted to do anything about what was happening here in the state of Arizona, we needed to engage our communities in the decision-making process. Within Mi Familia Vota, the mission was to engage Latinos, particularly Latinos. So that's where I got started around Arizona politics. And my first campaign was actually to raise the minimum wage in 2006. So I've been at it for so long that I've gone to two minimum wage campaigns, two minimum wage campaigns to increase the minimum wage. But that was also the year where we had Proposition 300, where unfortunately, we tripled the tuition for Dreamers in Arizona. But I like to make the point of like having gone through two minimum wage campaigns and also Proposition 300, because although we passed it in 2006 and it was devastating, like in 2022, we were able to repeal that proposition. And why? Because in that moment, we knew that we needed to grow our political power and we needed to not give up. And so we have been working at changing the political landscape here in the state of Arizona for a very long time. And what has been amazing is that although people like me who have gotten their start in Arizona politics because of the need of immigration reform, there have been many of us that recognize that these issues intersect, that the same people that were attacking our immigrant communities are the ones gutting our education system, are the ones trying to dismantle our democracy, chipping away healthcare, reproductive rights, in denial of climate change. So what has happened is that we have built a strong coalition where many of us have said that if we work together, we can really transform the political landscape. So I've been a leader in that coalition. And so from ousting the author of SB 1070 to ousting Sheriff Arpaio to protecting the Affordable Care Act, I have been part of the coalition, and like you said earlier, elected to the legislature, where we fought back against the extremists And I'm very, very proud to have led in the state Democratic Party, the Arizona Democratic Party, where we had historic victories. So the reason I'm running for Congress is, number one, I have a kid, I have an 8-year-old, and he drives me every single day to do the best I can because I worry about him, his generation, and the ones to come. And I know that we have to leave it all in the field for them. And I know that we still have to get done a lot of work, a lot of policy, like immigration reform. We need to protect our democracy. We need to fight for legal and safe abortion. We need to make sure that we have bold environmental protections. And of course, as we are talking to people, we all know that people are feeling the economic hardships. And it's not only the so-called inflation, right? It's also like the people were feeling left behind before the pandemic, and people are still trying to catch up. So I hope that we can work together in this journey. We have a strong and broad coalition that includes now South Mountain Indivisible, and it includes Senator Mark Kelly, it includes Lucha, Working Families Party, many unions that number 40,000 union members all across the state. I'm the only candidate endorsed by Planned Parenthood and endorsed by Reproductive Freedom for All. So the vision is that we are taking the organizing onto the next level into Congress. There we go, Marty. That was a long answer.
I loved it. We loved it. All right, Raquel, and something that just really stands out for me is your story and your public service record are such a testament and such a really clear visualization of how not only have you built and grown power for people in the state, but your words match your service. And it's really inspiring for us to get to hear that story and the length of it and to understand and have the texture that you just shared with us. So you just shared that you're the only candidate endorsed by Planned Parenthood and Reproductive Freedom for All. Congratulations. It's a huge
Thank you.
Yes. And so let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about reproductive freedom for all Arizonans, and let's talk about what it means to you and the connection between codifying the right to abortion access in Arizona and sending leaders like you to Congress to fight for those rights.
Yeah. Wow. Well, first and foremost, I think I'll say thank you so much for collecting signatures, and Mari, that Indivisible at a national level has decided to make Arizona a priority because many of us have been saying, Arizona is a battleground state, help us. And we have had to fight, sometimes without the national support, but having the national support is incredibly important to get these type of things on the ballot, these issues on the ballot, abortion access on the ballot, and get it passed. Because our work is going to be critical on the ground, but the national partnership is also as important. And for me, abortion access is important personally for myself, of course, but also for the next generation. It's wild that we are in this place of limbo of, do we have a full abortion ban or do we have a 15-week abortion ban? And I became passionate about this issue through the years. I actually evolved very much on this issue. Like I said, I grew up Catholic, and it was sometimes an issue that was a taboo. And so as I became an adult and started to decompress what I had learned, it was an issue that I knew I had to be more involved in. And in 2019, when I was already elected to the state legislature, I was fortunate to join a delegation of state legislators who were in very similar states like ours. So some folks from Ohio, Alabama, from Florida, and oh my gosh, I'm going to forget the fourth state, but of course, Arizona. We all traveled to El Salvador with State Innovation Exchange. And we traveled to El Salvador because El Salvador has a full abortion ban. And to think that 5 years ago, we went trying to figure out what the impact would be if we actually had a full abortion ban, and now be here 5 years later, experimenting or living through that hell, because it's nothing else but hell. We talk to women from the jail of Iztacalco, where people had been incarcerated, had been there for 9 years for miscarriages. Some of them had a spontaneous abortion. Some of them had an abortion for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. I don't have to explain why they were there, but the fact is that it was healthcare. It was the reproductive healthcare that took them into that jail. And I will never forget. I mean, I will never forget their stories. I remember Sarita, who shared her story that she had fallen and then was taken to a hospital when she was pregnant, and when she woke up, she had been handcuffed to her oh my God, to her bed, because people thought that she had had an abortion, and then she had spent 9 years in jail. Fortunately, all of these women have been are out of jail because of the organizing that has happened. But the reality is that they were detained. They were in jail. They suffered the worst consequence of an abortion ban. We got to hear from doctors who were afraid of even even going through procedures that had like ectopic pregnancies. And that is what we are hearing right now in Arizona. So, I mean, at the end of the day, this is not about any freedom. This is only about control. So nothing infuriates me more than folks trying to have control over somebody else. So I am in it to make sure that we win this initiative, that we get it on the ballot. So our campaign is collecting signatures. We will make sure that the infrastructure that we're building right now to make sure that we get through the primary is here for when we actually have to get this passed in November, because this district will be pivotal to the race from the top of the ticket to make sure that we get the president reelected and that we get the Senate and that we also pass this initiative. And but at the end of the day, what I'm fully committed is to make sure that we get into Congress and that we codify Roe, and that we continue to make sure that we have access to reproductive rights at all levels and in every shape or form that is needed. That includes birth control, of course. But yes, there we go. That's a long story too.
No, it was powerful. It was chilling. And again, another illustration of why we all have to continue to organize for the futures that we deserve and that matter to us and our families. So I'm going to pivot us a little bit to democracy and voting rights and go right to the question: do you commit to co-sponsoring and fighting for passage of bold structural democracy reform and voting rights protections like the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act as one of the first acts of the new Congress?
Amen. Yes, yes, yes. We can talk about all the rights. Yes, Maddie is dancing with
all
me.
the rights.
You know, I think, like you mentioned it, one of the most difficult things that I had to do as a chair of the Arizona Democratic Party was that accountability that we had to go through our then Democratic senator. That for us, if we don't have access to the ballot box, if we don't have a healthy democracy, how are we going to get these policies, these bold policies that will make people's realities better? It's impossible. So we need to make sure that our communities are voting. And I actually think, like everything that we're seeing right now, if it's at a state level or if it's at a federal level, it's a reaction to the movement that we built, right? The action is always in the reaction. And when we see these barriers that Republicans are trying to put forth in terms of democracy, is because our communities are participating. We're using our voices, and we have changed the political landscape, at least here in the state of Arizona. We know that things look different because Latinos, Black, Indigenous, youth, women, we are participating at higher numbers, and things are going to continue to look different. It will be tough, like you said earlier, but it's because we are participating, and that's the reaction. So I am fully committed to make sure that we have democracy reform. I know that, you know, it's not only about the ballot box. It's about making sure that people like me can run for Congress and they don't have to raise $1.5 million, which is so wild because we have to fight these wild dollars that people can give into a campaign. The fact that we have, like, I'm fully committed to, you know, and Citizens United, right? I am endorsed also by End Citizens United. And there's a lot that encompasses the democracy reform that we need to make sure that it really reflects the communities that live in our district and in our state.
That's right, Raquel. And as you said, there is a lot that is encompassed in a democracy agenda. One other question we have in that realm is, as a member of Congress, how will you address the unethical behavior of some justices and the corruption within the court? Do you commit to co-sponsoring legislation to rebalance the court by expanding the number of justices on the bench?
Yeah, I that's a commitment I've had with other organizations like the Working Families Party. Absolutely, I think that we need to expand the courts. There needs to be accountability. We need to explore if there are potential term limits. We need to see what we need to do to make sure that we have a fair judicial system. I mean, we through time, we've gone through phases where we've had the building of power, and we've had the organizing, the building of power, engagement of our communities in the decision-making process. But then there have been times where we had just courts, and now we're experiencing very unjust courts. So yes, I am very committed to that.
Great. Okay, we're shifting again. All right.
Shift. I love the shifting.
Really.
I hope everybody else is dancing too.
This is a dynamic interview, y'all.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh.
All right. So we're shifting over to labor and worker power. Do you commit to co-sponsoring and fighting for the passage of the PRO Act to protect workers' rights?
Okay. All right. Well, yes, of course, 100%. That's another resolution that we led under my leadership at the Arizona Democratic Party. I mean, I'm committed as a legislator. I was committed as the chair of the party. I was committed as of course, as a candidate. And I think that the only way of making sure that we have a strong middle class is by making sure that we have organized worker power. I am endorsed by UFCW Local 99. That I actually worked for UFCW Local 99 back in 2006, 2007. SCIU was also a place that I worked on. I'm a current member of AFSCME and CWA, the painters, Boilermakers, Teamsters, AFL-CIO, Arizona AFL-CIO, they're all part of our coalition. And yes, 100%, we need to make sure that we are protecting worker rights.
Great. Raquel, this is like the most broad LinkedIn profile I've ever heard, girl. Like, I'm here for all the flexing. I'm here. Yes, tell us all the endorsements because they are helpful and understanding how powerful your record is and how inviting and inspiring it is to building really strong but also durable coalitions. So yes, keep bringing all of these folks with us. Now onto a topic that you shared earlier that was a big sort of like focusing for you and coming into movement. This was true for me too in the early 2000s, and that's immigration and immigrant rights. We know that Donald Trump and the Republican Party is out there being super clear about the kinds of things they would do to families all across our country. And so let's talk a little bit about that. What will you do to combat MAGA's cruelty against migrants and asylum seekers?
Wow. No, I mean, I talk about comprehensive immigration reform unapologetically, and it's, you know, it's been disheartening to see that also our side has moved farther, like more to the right. I think that myself as a candidate who is from the border, who will represent a border state, I will have a responsibility to lead on this issue. And it's not easy to lead on this issue because the Republicans have made it such a wet issue and have demonized immigrant communities to the level, like I said, that I think are even folks that have been from the Democratic Party have been more to the center, more to the right, and that is a challenge. But we need to make sure that we're bringing back the humanity of this issue. We need to be talking about this issue, about the fact that people who are coming to the border or who are here, have families, are looking for the American dream. Some people are fleeing economic hardship, climate change, violence, and it's very real. And we need to make sure that we are talking about this in a very comprehensive manner. I know we've seen solutions for only border enforcement, but when I hear that is that we are leaving people who are here in the country, 11 million people who have been living in the shadows, who need to come out of the shadows. And we need to make sure that we are indeed getting things done. And I know that that it's hard to get things done in Congress, but I do believe that there is some willingness from the Republicans to get things done. And I think that my job will be to make sure that we're pushing as much humanity, human language possible into a good comprehensive bill. And I'm excited about that opportunity because it energizes me every single day. I mean, there's going to be a family that comes with an issue. Just today, I was on the phone call, and this person was calling me to ask me for guidance on how they could address the fact that they were being exploited at work, and they were being they were being exploited, and they were being oh my gosh, I'm spacing. They were blackmailing them because of their status. Another person was blackmailing them because of their status. Just a few weeks ago, I was reminded about the fact that people that DACA, or people who could have qualified for DACA were not of age when DACA was in order, and then now the program is frozen. There's always a reminder of how broken our system is when you're talking to people in our community. So many people are living in mixed status families. And so you have my commitment that that's the way I'm going to continue to talk about this in the most comprehensive manner. I'm mindful it's a challenge. I think I have a role to make sure that we're also pushing within our party to make sure that people are not afraid to talk about this issue.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate you sharing that. And I really appreciate, and you said this earlier, but I think also in some of those examples you just shared, our struggles, they're overlapping, they're intersecting, both with the struggles we have within, but also within our communities and across communities. And we know that this is just another part of a playbook of dividing Arizonans and dividing by design. And so I just really appreciate that you not only are bringing a sense of humanity to the conversation and expansion, but also solutions and a solutions orientation and commitment. So thank you. Thank you for that. Here we go to the next question.
Jiggling.
all the shoulder work. Okay, so we're going to talk about accountability. What is going to be, so your campaign's been fueled by grassroots donations rather than huge checks from mega funders and lobbyists. How is that, is that an approach you will carry with you to Washington? And how will you work with grassroots advocates like those in our Indivisible movement to organize your fellow members of Congress to achieve progress rather than just doing bidding of fancy lobbyists and big corporations?
All right. Yes, I don't take corporate dollars. And I've taken that pledge through my legislative journey, the state legislature journey, and I intend to do the same. And I will do the same, not intend. I will do the same when elected to Congress. And I won't kid, people will be like, you are shooting yourself in the foot. And it's like, take that money and put it into good use. You'll hear a lot about that. I think we need to shoot to reform our democracy to make it cleaner. I wish we had a clean election system at a federal level like we do here in the state of Arizona. That would be fair and gives working class people a fair shot of getting elected, because, oh my goodness, it's just the amount of time that a person has to spend on the phones asking for dollars is a huge challenge more if you don't have a wealthy network. So I just like to be candid, like my opponent has a huge network that is a huge network that can do the max outs, even the double max outs. And for those of you that don't know what the double max out is like $3,300 for the primary and $3,300 for the general election. Although the general election dollars cannot be touched, they're there and they give the perception that you're raising a lot of money. So we have been challenged with the fact that we have an opponent that has that wealthy network, and it's hard, but it is at the end of the day, like the small dollar contributions that end up adding up. We have more than 5,000. I know, like more than 5,000 at this point. At one point, I think we have 4,000 individual contributors, more than 5,000 donations. So a lot of these people have been giving, 2 or 3 donations, small dollar donations, or some people, you know who you are, that have maxed out and in 3 chunks of $1,000 and so forth. So of course, yes, I plan to continue to not take corporate dollars, corporate PAC dollars. It's hard, but we need to make sure to keep those out of you know, these type of corporations don't need to have that influence with us as elected officials. But then when I was elected to the state legislature, I was very intentional of continuing the relationship with those that had been part of our coalition. So some of the work that we did at the state legislature, we stopped the decrease of the minimum wage. The Republicans came back after in 2019, trying to decrease the minimum wage for students. And the way that we were able to stop that bad bill was working in collaboration with Lucha, bringing them close to the committee meetings. They were even on the floor of the Arizona House of Representatives, because they were learning about the process. And that's, I think, like what we need to continue, what I want to continue to do in Congress. And in the way that that Lucha calls it, is the co-governance piece. I love that model. Of course, I actually developed paid family and medical leave, the policy itself, with Lucha. And that was a great partnership, because not only were we able to do some proactive measures like paid family and medical leave, but we were able to collaborate and work really intentionally and build a coalition to stop bad laws, like the ones that to decrease the minimum wage, or even the ban on sanctuary cities. We sounded the alarm. Sounding the alarm quickly when we have these bad propositions is really important. I am a believer of sounding alarms and making sure that we're organizing and stopping things from getting to the next level. So that's something I also look forward to doing. And we all have different roles. We will be organizing in the outside, and we will be organizing on the inside. And that's what I bring to the table, my organizing skills, trying to build relationships with both not the Democratic, within the Democratic caucus, and hopefully the Republican caucus. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Thanks, Raquel. And also I'm like, are you reading my mind? Because basically this next question is about co-governance and partnering with folks who are most impacted. But before I ask you the question, do you want to shout out Lucha? They're amazing partners. They're your day oneers. And have
Lucha came out on Friday. We announced on a Wednesday, and they're like, we're endorsing on Friday.
That's right. I just want to celebrate their leadership in this race and in supporting you and inviting so many of us into their vision. So on to governing and co-governance. How will you bring the voices of those directly impacted by issues such as climate change, lack of abortion access, gun violence, poverty, and more with you to Washington?
No, yeah, and I think that's it. It's from developing good policy, like for me, when we're putting when I put my name on policy, I like to put my name on policy that was crafted not only by our team, because I know like it takes a lot to actually put the wording into policy, but that goes through a process with stakeholders. And then in the legislative process, people will say is like, you change the legislation and that's how the sausage is made. Like that was like very commonly used at the state legislature. But if you are crafting policy from the beginning with stakeholders, I think that's the best way to like come out of the gate with winning policy. And obviously there's a lot of negotiating that happens, and it happens with also the stakeholders, you know, like it's having intentional stakeholder group meetings, it's having people at the table when policy is written, is having people organizing when there's bad things happening, because come on, we cannot kid ourselves. Even if we are in the majorities, we still will have a very MAGA, if they're a minority, it's going to be by very little, and they still will have very extreme minorities. And so we should expect these fightbacks to be very ugly. So on that aspect, I think it's also important to collaborate and be the best partner possible with a coalition that helped one get elected.
That's great. And any, perhaps it's early for this, but any early visioning around how you want district and legislative staff to interact to make sure that they continue to be like understanding the heartbeat of the community?
Oh my goodness, yes. That's oh my God, Mariam, I love that you asked that question, because one of the most difficult things at the state legislature was that we, like all of us, the Democratic caucus share staff, right? Share policy staff. The one that we, in the House of Representatives, we have an assistant, and like, it's life-changing to have an assistant. I had never had an assistant until I was at the state legislature. I'm like, oh, you mean like I don't have to schedule the meeting and then we can do more work? And so we legislators shared an assistant, and that like, but that's the only team members that we have. So I am looking forward to having an organizing team on the ground. That's like, I mean, I see it as an organizing team, like the people we want to, I want to make sure that our office is doing the best constituency service as possible and building the strongest relationships and using the resources that we have as members of Congress, and like, well, when elected, when the members of Congress have, like, there's so much potential there. But it's really hiring organizers in my mind that you need to have in those roles, if it's the constituent services or if it's the community outreach, and even the district director. Those folks need to have an organizing mindset, because that's how you maximize the resources. But the fact that you have some resources, that is already, I think it always gives me a lot of hope, and I think it's a lot of opportunity, and I hope that we can have an office here on the ground that's really connected to the community. And obviously the legislative piece in DC moves at a really fast pace. I am mindful of that, but absolutely making sure that we are on the ground in a way that we're very much present. I think that's what's a winning combination. Yeah.
For sure. And Raquel, as a former Senate staffer and a current nerd, I just gotta say it is so fun to see you get excited about that question, and to just like dive in and have an early vision already for what it looks like to support your constituents, and to make sure that folks have a really smart organizing orientation. And speaking of smart organizing orientation, we've reached our last category.
Oh
And
gosh.
I know you're doing great. Okay, so Indivisible is proud to support progressives running for office and making change in Congress. Our movement has enthusiastically worked alongside elected progressives who organize together to collectivize the power and to shift the landscape of Congress. We know this is hard, and that we believe that advancing these ideas that can face blowback from entrenched political interests, or even put progressives in conflict with their own party. So we can overcome these hurdles by growing the ranks of progressives who understand this dynamic. And as you said earlier, right, the inside outside, who will be organizers on the inside and also understand how to engage with grassroots on the outside. Indivisible, we clearly have like a really strong orientation around an inside outside strategy. So questions, sorry for the long intro. Questions. One, we know you've been endorsed by the Congressional Progressive Caucus, PAC, and we are committed and you are committed to joining the caucus if elected. Tell us more about what your involvement in the caucus means and why advancing progressive values in Congress matters.
Yeah, I think that being involved in the caucuses is important. I learned how to be involved in our, as soon as I got elected, I became chair. I'm not chair. I became a board member of the Arizona Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee. And granted, that is a more conservative in a sense of values, but it had a mission, which was to get majorities in our state legislature. And so I'm excited about the Congressional Progressive Caucus and the Congressional Progressive Caucus PAC, because the stronger these organizations, we need to invest time, energy, and resources in helping build organizations like the Congressional Progressive Caucus so that we can recruit other progressive caucus members. I'm a strong believer that if we have a Democratic seat that leans progressive, it should have the strongest progressive person, because that way we can move our progressive values in Congress. And many times, some of these seats that should lean progressive, because they're Democratic, because sometimes we'll have somebody that maybe is more corporate-y, to say it nicely, more and sometimes not willing to organize. So if we have a strong progressive caucus that has the resources, that has the vision, we can elect more people like us that can hopefully make be more vocal in terms of the issues that we want to move forward on the progressive end of things. So I am looking forward to working with these infrastructures. I am also endorsed by BullPAC, which supports Latinos that are running for Congress. And so it's I know that's also it's all worlds collide there. We have both surprise, and so many people overlap within both the BullPAC and the Congressional Progressive Caucus. But I think having those PACs and those caucuses in strong shape really helps us elect people that reflect our values and our interests.
Great, thank you. And the last question, so we're all going to imagine we are going to continue to work really hard. We're going to continue to talk to our neighbors and to voters, and we are all going to work our tails off for a Democratic trifecta this fall.
Yes.
I'm inviting all the spirits and the manifestation for that, as well as all the hard work we're all going to do. So in that future, what do you think is the most important thing for Democrats to be focused on if we win this election? Or we should say when we win this election, but.
Oh my goodness, that's I think protecting democracy. I mean, restoring like, look, for me, we needed, like, the first step is to make sure that we have a healthy democracy. And it's hard to pick one issue, but we are in the verge of these folks who are trying to dismantle democracy, and it's not hyperbole, it's real. And we need to make sure we come in full force and make sure that we have the strongest democracy possible. And then when we have that trifecta, because we need to be talking about when, we need to, like, be very effective. And I have gone through my years in organizing where we had the trifecta with President Obama and we had a trifecta with President Biden. And on issues like abortion access and immigration reform, those are the two top issues. And of course, democracy, I'm just saying it, but I mean, we didn't get anything done. So we got a lot of things done. I recognize the policies too, but these things that are very much needed to change people's lives didn't get accomplished. So we need to make sure that we do have a strong democracy so that we can make sure that we have the strongest policies possible when we're moving these policies.
Yes, strong democracy. And yes to Raquel. Thank you so much, sister.
Gracias, hermana, hermanos y todos. Hermanes, hermanes.
My Oprah assignment from the team. I appreciate it. thank you so much, seriously, for being tenacious and for sticking with building the broadest, most durable coalition to win, because you are one of the hardest working candidates I have met this cycle. And I'm so excited that our folks got to hear from you today directly, and that you go to your constituents and to the grassroots directly. And yeah, just thank you. And I believe you are free to go, Raquel.
All
unless you want
right.
to-
Well, I
Okay.
thank you, Mari, thank you, Trish, thank you, Signa, thank you, Julie, thank you, everybody who came. Everybody has a nice background. I just want to say, my background is a countdown of a calendar. We're 77 days from the primary. So if you're in Arizona, South Mountain Indivisible, join us, knock on doors, make phone calls, come and pick up a sign here at the office. We have a new office in Central Phoenix. Sorry, Signa, we're not, we're neighbors, but our offices are going to be downtown now. Okay, a big hug to everybody.
Un
Thank you
abrazo,
for everything you
chao.
do. Let's
And
make
before-
it happen. A ganar. Vamos a ganar, si se puede.
And before anyone else logs off, do you want to hand it over to AJ to close this out formally? And before I hand it over to AJ, I just want to say thank you, AJ. AJ, who you're about to hear from, organized this event, this endorsement process from national. And you know, Trisha and I and Signa and I, we all showed up and we're like, hey, because we were so well supported by AJ and by our team, and wanted to do right for all of our Indivisible Arizona leaders. So thank you, AJ, and over to you.
Gosh, thank you for moderating such a really amazing conversation with a really amazing candidate. Hi, everyone. My name is AJ Hedrick. My pronouns are they, them, and I run Indivisible's National Endorsements Program. So we held this interview with Raquel to give Indivisibles across Arizona, but particularly those of you who are residing in Arizona's 3rd congressional district where Raquel is running. We wanted to give you all an opportunity to learn more about her candidacy and her vision for the district and the nation. Indivisible is always looking for voices like Raquel's because they are desperately needed in Congress, especially if we hope to achieve our vision of a true democracy that is by and for the people. And we at Indivisible National agree with Signa and the rest of Indivisible South Mountain. Raquel is the best candidate to represent the 3rd District in Congress. The group's endorsed her, and we'd like to endorse her too. But before we do, we need to know that Indivisibles in Arizona 3 are with us and ready to endorse Raquel too. So starting this Friday, May 17th, we can go to the next slide. This Friday, May 17th, making sure I lost my notes for a second, y'all. Apologies. Starting this Friday, May 17th at 6 p.m. Pacific time, that's local time in Arizona, we'll be opening up our national endorsements vote window for Raquel Terán. We'll be sending out an email to every registered Indivisible in Arizona's 3rd district. This vote is limited to just the Indivisibles in the district to ask them the one simple question that you see on your screen right there. Should Indivisible Action nationally endorse Raquel Terán for Congress? So if you are in Arizona's 3rd congressional district and you don't receive your ballot link via email within 24 hours of voting, or within 24 hours of that voting window opening, please reach out to me so that I can get to the bottom of it and make sure that you have your chance to cast your vote in this endorsement window. We'll close the voting window on Monday, May 20th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time, and we'll shortly after that publicly share the outcome of that vote with the hopes that it is successful and will have endorsed Raquel. So I can't close out before I give a huge thank you to all of you for showing up to hear from Raquel, to hear from Mari, to hear from Signa, and to learn more about what Raquel's campaign stands for. I also have to thank Trisha for all the work that she's done to support groups in Arizona like Indivisible South Mountain and to be here to open the call. And that leads me to Signa. Thank you so much for pumping us up on primaries. Thank you for being involved in primaries. They're hugely, hugely important ways for us to shape the party that we want to see. And endless thank yous to Mari for leading an engaging and energizing conversation. Lastly, and most importantly, thank you, Raquel Terán, for taking the time to come and speak with us. And that is it. We're a couple minutes over. I appreciate everyone who stuck around to let me get through these closing notes. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you out there. Good night.
Let's
Bye.
go.
Let's get it.